going.
Right, so you won't play with the other screens up.
Yep.
Yeah, the dog show. Hey, you ready? The dog show with Nick and Joe. It's a beast.
What?
It's going down. It's off the chain. It's off the leash.
Yeah.
I'm tuning in Friday every week. The dog show podcast. Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Hold up. Check out the podcast. Listen to it online. Giving you advice to help train your K9. Take your dog to the next level from the experts of obedience. The dog show, dog show. Guaranteed you're needing this. Ayy, off the leash. K9 training,
Hey.
Facebook and IG. And the site is so amazing.
What?
Yeah, the dog show with Nick and Joe. Hold up. The dog show with Nick and Joe. Ayy.
All right, welcome to the Dog Show. Let's get into some show sponsors. We want to thank DemonABiteSuits.com, owner Chris Pell. Check them out on Facebook. Check them out on their website. What we consider to be the best bite suits on the planet. Upon checkout, use discount code DOGSHOW for 10% off your entire order. So thank you to those guys for sponsoring our show since day one. Also want to thank Flower of Life CBD. We are huge advocates for CBD for humans and pets. And you can head over to their website, which is folcbd.com. That's folcbd.com. Use discount code DOGSHOW for 10% off your entire order with them. And then finally, but not least, we want to thank Whistle.com, Whistle GPS collars for your dog. Very, very cool. It's a little quarter-size thing you just attach to the flat collar of your dog, and you can do live GPS tracking on your phone and see where they're at if they were to ever kind of wander off and run around the neighborhood. So we are excited about today's episode. Let's get into it.
Power up request received.
Program the computer.
Initiating systems. Powering of transmitters. Live from OLK9 Studios in Virginia. They tell it like they see it. They educated the not so educated. And you'll laugh your ass off. Introducing The Dog Show with Nick and Joe. A podcast with knowledgeable info, rants, and absolute randomness. You're listening to the sounds of uncensored honesty from two of the most respected dog trainers in the industry. Live on Facebook every Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. New episodes available for download every Saturday. The Dog Show with Nick and Joe. Download on iTunes, Google Play, and iHeartRadio.
Alrighty, welcome to the Dog Show, episode 15. I have my main man, Mr. Nick White, sitting across the table from me. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. What's going on, guys?
You are back from California.
I am.
It is about time. And then across the table from us, we have a very special guest in studio today, Mr. Jerry Bradshaw, which is owner of Tar Heel Canine and founder and what I call the godfather of PSA, I call it controlled chaos. I mean, it is a fucking phenomenal sport. So we are happy to have him in studio today. Jerry, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Well, thanks for having me out. I am, as you said, the owner of Tar Heel Canine, and back in around 2001, myself and Joe Morris from up in Baltimore founded PSA, and so that's apart from my business, that's been a pretty wild ride over the years of developing a new American sport for dogs, surprise scenario sport. It's been a very interesting and great journey, and we're really excited about all the new growth that we've been having lately.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So before we jump into it, Nick, tell us a little bit about your trip in California, man. How was it?
I just got back from Sacramento. I was doing training for UFC star, UFC champion Cody No Love Garbrandt. If anyone has any familiarity with UFC, then you know who Cody Garbrandt is. Just a savage and an equally amazing guy. Loved working with Cody.
I feel like Cody's like the people's champion. Like everybody loves Cody.
Such a good dude.
Yeah.
Like literally, I told Daniel Carter, the owner of Off Leash Canine Columbus, he came out and he's the film guy that you see filming all the videos, and we both agreed, we're like, Cody Garbrandt is literally one of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life.
Wow.
So just a good, solid dude. And his dog was great, Canelo. He's one of those double XL bullies, the big, jacked.
Yeah.
Dude's like 6 months old and weighing like 60. His mom is 140,
Jeez.
and his dad's like $155. So he's just gonna be a beast. So Cody knew that. They have a newborn on the way, or they do have a newborn. It was on the way a couple weeks ago. It's like their baby's like a week old now. So obviously he knew he was gonna have a massive dog. So he's like, I need to get control over this dog because we want to, take the baby out in the stroller, take the dog with him.
Yeah, of
his
course.
wife, I don't know, is maybe like 90 pounds to $100. So when that dog's 150, obviously she needs to be able to control that dog.
Yeah.
And I had a great time. If you guys get a chance, you can check out the video on our YouTube channel. Do off-leash healing around the Giants game, around Giant Stadium before the Giants game, and all kinds of cool stuff in the video. And yeah, it was an amazing time. Cody was awesome. Dog Canelo was awesome. And
Yeah, the video was pretty phenomenal. I went ahead and put it up on the Dog Show Facebook page, so check that out when you get a chance. It was impressive.
thank you.
To say the least. So congratulations.
And Cody's having
on
fun
that.
with it. He texted me yesterday, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Any questions? Any concerns? And he's like, dude, I'm loving it. He's already posted some updates on his
Yeah, I saw
Instagram,
that. I
showing
saw
like
that.
door manners, like sit, him walking in the door, break,
Yeah.
and then the dog, and showing like a distance down. And so he's like, yeah, me and his brother's name's Ty, and he's like, yeah, me and Ty's loving it. He's like, dude, since you've left, like Ty takes him everywhere. He's like, takes him to the stores he goes to, like he goes everywhere with him now. So
Awesome.
and they're someone that I feel like will, whenever I do these like celebrity athlete dogs, there's certain ones that you can pinpoint pretty well. I feel like once I leave, like this dog's never gonna hear the word place again,
Yeah.
or heel, or
Yeah.
but for them, when I left, I'm like, they're not only gonna continue it, but they're gonna make the dog better. And I feel like it's just who the person is. Like when you're in mixed martial arts like that, at that high level, you're a very disciplined person, structured, disciplined, like that's everything in their life. So I feel like he'll definitely do a good job continuing the training.
That's awesome, man.
So it was awesome. Had a lot of fun with those guys.
Yeah, good job on it. All right, Mr. Jerry Bradshaw.
The man, the myth, the legend.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Man, it is awesome to have you in here because I don't know if you know this or not, but I got into protection work about 6 months ago, not as to teach it, but just because I was interested in it. And so throughout doing that, I started researching all the sports, and I can honestly tell you that by far, well, I won't say by far, but definitely for sure, just from watching the videos and seeing the posts on Facebook and all that, PSA has got to be my favorite, at least from the outside looking in, just because it is fucking chaotic, man, but it's controlled in a sense. Why don't you tell us a little bit about PSA, how it got started, and
What it is. Tell everyone what it
the
is.
thought process behind it all.
Sure. I think back when we were before PSA was created, I had a lot of background in IPO. I did that for a number of years, first as a hobby, and then I was in graduate school at the time at UNC Chapel Hill when I started training my own personal dogs for sport, and it was just a hobby at that point. And then once I decided to leave my PhD program and start my business, I started to run into the issue where I didn't have the 3 or 4 hours every day to go tracking to be at the level that I wanted to be at, and I was still building a business, or while I was when I was in school, I had a lot more time to play around with that kind of stuff. So anyway, we started thinking about a sport that was a little more devoid of politics. Because IPO at that time and especially right now, things are going crazy in that world. But we said, what if we did something that was a little bit more surprise scenario oriented? So you mix things up. You get to the trial, you don't know exactly what you're going to have to do, and we had to hone that concept over the years because. People would come in and they would think their dogs could do stuff, and they would get into a level 1 and it would be just insane, compared to what they were prepared for back in 2001. And like I've said to a lot of people over the years, the level of training has come up so much, and in the past 10 or 12 years, and and the people that are in it are really starting to be able to beat the sport more consistently. And so, so we've made some changes in the sport to make the levels a little bit more divergent, so they don't seem to like they're, back in the day when I got my 2 PSA 3s on my first two dogs, like a level 2 could look a lot like a level 3. There wasn't that much structure to what the judges were supposed to do. So we've kind of narrowed that down a little bit and refined it, and I think that's helped the training and helped the trainers be successful and being able to step up the levels. So that's been a huge advance that we've made in the last few years. And the fact is we're bringing in lots and lots and lots of good trainers, and so you're seeing the results of that, which is we had, I think last year, 4 or so inductees into the PSA 3 club, and we've got somewhere around, I'll be admonished by my PSA secretary, I'm sure, about not knowing the number correctly, but it's like 18 people have gotten PSA 3, 18 teams have gotten PSA 3, and then there's 2 of us, myself and Janet Dooley at State Line Canine, who also last year got her second PSA 3 on a dog. And it's pretty hard. It's not something you can just train for and then inside of a year just like shoot right through the levels and and knock it out. Most of the dogs are a little bit older.
So when coming up with the idea to do PSA, what was the thought process to separate you from other sports, Mondio and IPO and all that? What's the main thought process when you and Joe were coming up with it?
The main thought process really was we wanted to create something fairly unique. I started out in IPO. I had a lot of people that were into other sports when we first started creating it. There were some surprise scenario sports out on the West Coast that were very small and sort of contained to certain geographical areas, and we did a little bit of playing around with those, and we just thought to ourselves we could do something better. And we had traveled a lot in Europe buying dogs, Joe and I, and so we had seen Belgian ring, we had seen French ring, we had seen IPO trials in Europe, we had seen KMPV trials in Europe, many times been to KMPV Nationals, so we kind of had a sense of what the sport world was about at a fairly high level. And so, our goal was then to say, well, what do we like about all these sports, and what can we do to kind of Americanize it a little bit and make it a, the kind of thing that, we want to. I don't even know how to shut my phone off.
It's all right.
It's got a new one, so I'm sorry about that.
It's all right.
But yeah, we wanted to Americanize a little bit and say, all right, well, what can we do? And that was sort of like the whole idea was to create the surprise scenario sport, right? So that you get there and the judge walks you through, your obedience routine, your protection routine, and tells you on that day, here's the set of behaviors that your dog is going to have to be able to perform, strung together in a particular way that he figured out for that day. And so it caught on pretty fast. Like we had, we started out literally doing club trials for my club. I had a fairly good sized club and Joe Morris's club up in Baltimore. And at first we started out just doing these surprise scenario trials before PSA was even invented, right? And we would just go, we would take all our crew up to Baltimore and just hold a trial with like 12 or 13 dogs, and then they would come down once a year and we would do one at our place. And then people started coming out to them and they were like, we want to do this, like, can we start a club? How do we do it? And we're like, well, we've got to formalize things a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of how PSA got born. And then we just, people started recruiting themselves into it, and it became kind of a phenomenon early on where people were getting into it. But then we also had a lot of people wanting to get into it that were getting into it for the wrong reasons, which was, I don't like this other sport, or I don't like this other sport. And, then you get into PSA and realize, well, it's a hard sport too, and it may not have tracking in it, but it doesn't mean it's any more accessible if you don't have the skills as a trainer. So it was really important for people to, I think, to learn, how to train for it. And that's something that we spend a lot of time with when we're developing new areas that don't have PSA, or, we're in lots of different countries, and we go there. Just the idea of, okay, how do you prepare for a surprise scenario sport? A lot of people look at the level 3s and just get completely overwhelmed, and it's like that, that old proverb, you have to, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. You have to take some early steps, and you have to build and build and build and have discipline and dedication.
Yeah.
But you also have to, know something about, all right, well, how do you prepare for this kind of stuff? How do you build the behaviors you need? What behaviors do you need? And so that's what we spend a lot of time doing, when we go out and give seminars. A lot of the PSA seminars that we do, at least the management in PSA does, we do for free. We go out to any new club that signs up, they get a free welcome seminar. So, we're one of the few sports that actually directly support the clubs and say, look, what do you need to be successful? How can we help you? And so, partly our decoy developmental camps and decoy certifications are things that we do to, increase the level of the decoy work, increase the training decoy work. There's a lot of good decoys out there who are not necessarily trial level decoys that can do a lot to develop club dogs and things like that. So we try and spread that word as well.
Very cool. And any idea how many members there are now in PSA?
It varies a little bit because, a lot of people might show a dog, and then it might be another year or year and a half where they show again. Sometimes they'll let their memberships lapse. But, I think right now we're at about 400 members, and for a suit sport, that's huge.
That's crazy, man.
We're not quite to the levels of IPO yet in America, but that's been around for a bit longer, and it's also more accessible for a lot of reasons, at least the protection work and stuff is. And so, just the investment of buying a bite suit, is pretty substantial, so you can go out and, pay a couple $100 and get a nice sleeve, but, getting
Or you can go to demonateBiteSuits.com.
Exactly. Yeah.
Quick plug, dog show discount.
Right. I was actually doing a high risk deployment seminar in Ocean City this week, and that's why I'm kind of up here. And it's always nice when they pull out the bite suits from their cars and they're all Demon A's, and you're like, oh, thank God it's not some big Marshmallow Man.
Oh, so you're a Demon A fan as well?
Yeah,
then.
absolutely.
Awesome, man.
It's, all of my decoys in our club
Nice.
run Demon A's for sure.
And how long has PSA been around? Like 18 years now?
Yeah, about so. Yeah, we started. It was founded in 2001. Is when we started having our first trials. We had done those surprise scenario trials between our clubs for the couple of years leading.
But that's like
into
the
that.
official.
Yeah, the official birthday. Yeah, it was around then.
And for a lot of people that are out there that aren't familiar at all with PSA, like if you were to explain it to someone like in a summarized sentence, what is PSA summarized? Like, I have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, it's a dog sport that showcases, for civilians, the ability to train your dog in obedience and protection scenarios that are ever changing.
At a high level.
At a very high level. Yeah, our expectations are high. I mean, when you can probably go out and see dogs healing at very attentively and that sort of thing. And then you get to level 3s and you've got 4 decoys, running around your dog while you're healing and screaming and yelling and shaking shaker cans and all that kind of stuff. And, when I've shown before, I've had decoys, throw a bucket of water on me while I'm healing and, all kinds of stuff like that. So, you don't necessarily know, unless you've seen a bunch of them before. You kind of have an idea what to expect. One of the nice things about PSA is we have such good judges in PSA that even when I go out to compete as a competitor, sometimes, I'm like, how, I've been doing this forever. How did I not think of that? That was a very creative scenario that the judge wrote up or something like that. So it's always challenging, and you have to get used to failing a lot in PSA. Like, people come out and they think they're just going to
breeze through.
Yeah, like we get calls from people that have never competed before, and they're like, hey, can I do like my PDC and my PSA 1 in one weekend? And I'm like, I've probably seen about 5 people do that.
Yeah.
Or they say, can I, if I get my PSA 1 on Saturday, can I try for my PSA 2 on Sunday? And I'm like, you can try. I've never seen it happen. But,
yeah.
You can try. It's the expectations of what people think is possible versus what it is once you get into it.
Correct.
And you realize how tough it is.
Did you ever think that it would grow to this point? Because I think I remember you and I are friends on Facebook, and I think I remember just a few months ago you were in India, right?
Yeah.
Training PSA guys out there.
Yeah, we were. I was in India last November. I've been going there for the last 3 or 4 years, and like those guys literally contacted me by via Facebook and email. and started sending me videos, and they're like, "Are we doing any of this stuff right?"
That's so awesome, man.
And so we set up the first seminar, and I went out there, and I was so impressed with those guys, just by like they have very little to no dog sport culture. Like there was never even an IPO trial there before.
Wow.
The first dog sport trial in India was a PSA trial that we had
Wow.
That's
2 years
awesome.
ago. So they're like just building a dog sport culture there, and so they from watching YouTube videos and from just trial and error. Like they didn't even have a hidden sleeve, so they would.
They're just like duct taping phone books around their hand, their arm and stuff.
well, like we when I went out there for the very first seminar, they're like, "Hey, can you bring a hidden sleeve?" And I was like, "Yeah." I brought one out to them, and they'd been taking newspaper and wrapping tape around it.
That's awesome.
And so we call that the Indian hidden sleeve.
That's awesome.
And our assistant director of decoys, I set up a seminar for him to do out there this past year, and he went out there and he was working some dogs, and he tried the Indian hidden sleeve, and so he was working the dogs, and after about 5 or 6 bites, the dog saliva starts breaking the paper down, and he didn't realize it. And then, he ended up with some punctures in his arm. But yeah, it's pretty cool to see these countries where they don't have a well-developed dog sport culture. They're trying to get into PSA. The hard part is you got to have dogs of the quality that are necessary to work in that sport, and then you've got to have the training knowledge. And
Correct.
So it does take a little while for them to ramp up, but we have so many dedicated people in these foreign countries that are getting into it, and also around the States that that are getting into it and putting a lot of effort into building it and that sort of thing. So it's impressive from my background. And to answer your question, no, I never really thought about it growing internationally, to be honest with you. You know, when we started in Canada, which was our first foreign country, even though all my Canadian friends don't feel like foreigners to me. They're just like polite versions of Americans.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they started up there, and we started growing up there, and I'll be in Canada for a couple of events this year, and we've got Australia going. Sean Edwards, one of our decoys, he's the famous Deadpool decoy on Facebook. I'm sure you saw. Saw him and his little bit of out of control cosplay fetish that he's got going on, right? So he's going to be down there. He's a PSA judge and a national level decoy. He's going to be down there doing a seminar and judging a trial in Australia in June. So yeah, we got tons of stuff coming up. South Africa again. Ireland is having an event in August as well. South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa. I'm going to Malaysia next month to sort of introduce the sport over there a little bit. I just got back from Costa Rica last month doing that, so it's a lot of traveling, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we feel sorry for you, Jerry. Rough life, buddy. So how many titles are there actually in PSA? How many different titles?
There's 4. There's our entry level, which is the PDC, which everybody has to do. Like technically there are 5. Like you can do what they call a sleeve PDC, which is just kind of a crossover title. If you wanted to crossover and your dog wasn't really on a suit yet, you can do the bite work on would be on a hidden sleeve in the carjacking, and the other 2 bite scenarios would be on an IPO sleeve. But for you to qualify to do the actual sport, you have to pass a PDC with a suit. And so the PDC is the first entry level, and that tests the dog's basic obedience, ability to to be under control out on the field. If you don't pass obedience, you don't get to go on and do any bite work. So as long as you pass obedience, you can do your bite work. It's kind of a nice thing because a lot of people that compete, if they compete in like IPO or something like that, they do their BH, and then there's no bite work in the BH, right? So you have to go do this like long drawn out, obedience and traffic test with like an hour's long healing and stuff like. And a lot of people are like, hey, if I get my bite work done, I made the travel to the trial, I want to show off my dog's bite work a little bit. Because let's be honest, that's why people are
exactly
out there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So they can start out there, and then the PSA 1, PSA 2, PSA 3 are the 3 levels. In PSA 1, you have to pass 1 time to get your level 1, and then in PSA 2 and PSA 3, you have to get 2 legs to be able to obtain a title.
If I had just a savage dog, just a machine, and I'm super dedicated to PSA, how long would you estimate it would take for me to go from kind of 0 to PSA 3 certification?
Well, for most of the dogs that are doing it, and most of the handlers that are doing it, it's a multi-year investment of time, right? So, you can, if you're really good and you got a really nice dog, you can probably get to, get through your PSA 2 in a 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but PSA 3 is just a different animal. Like, it's one of those things where it's just a surprise scenario thing. If the scenarios line up to your dog's
Then
strengths,
you can
know
get
what
it
I mean?
quicker.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
might be able to get it quicker. If it doesn't line up to your dog's strengths, then you might. You can, in PSA, it's unique because we have the obedience scenario and then we have 4 bite work scenarios, right? So you have to pass each scenario with a minimum of 75%. So you can score 95% on 4 scenarios, and on the 5th one,
Drop the ball.
Yeah, score 74, 73%, and then you just don't pass. So,
Yeah.
while,
So you kind of have to be not a jack of all trades, master of none. You got to be a master of all trades,
pretty
master
much,
of all,
you
pretty
have to-
much.
Yeah, you have to be able. Like what I always tell people in PSA is most people don't even know their scores. Like if you say, well, what was to an IPO person, what would you
Oh,
get that
they'll
truck?
know exactly.
They'll know it's like a golfer, right?
Yeah.
They'll know
Yeah.
exactly what it was, and they can tell you where they lost a half a point and stuff like that. You say to somebody in a PSA 2, like, what were your points? They probably don't even know.
They're like,
how
I just
many
passed.
total points are in the routine at all. Like,
Yeah.
unless you're a judge, most people don't know how many points.
They're
there
just
are.
happy to pass.
Yeah, you're happy. You're happy to pass, and it's and I think the way we've structured the sport has really been great in the sense that everybody roots for everybody else to beat the sport. Like, it's not so much a competition among people.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Although, when you're at a trial, of course,
Yeah,
you want to come in first place, right? In your division, but at the same time, everybody's rooting for everybody else to be able to beat the sport, because the sport is the thing that everybody's competing against.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's more like individual team handler and canine versus really like I'm trying to do better than you. Again, there is that as well, but
There's a little
in
bit- there's a little
general,
bit of that.
it's
But like, before nationals, we had a few people that would just come down and train at our club, and so we were helping other people that are in our levels get ready for trial, and that's something you see all over PSA, like people getting together, training together. Even if they're going to be competing in the same division at nationals, you'll see them all train together. And
That's
work together.
awesome.
So that's one of the things I'm most proud about in PSA is that level of camaraderie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see it from
it's hard to find in the dog training world.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, from
I gave
from
up.
up in New England to all across the country and internationally. We have people now that are in South Africa that are going to be going for their level 2s now, and they're talking about maybe coming over into nationals this year, which is actually going to be in Canada. It's going to be in Ontario. So we're getting very international, and our hope is that people from all over the world will be able to fly in if they qualify to be able to show at nationals and truly make it a nice international event.
That's awesome. One question I have, I'm really good friends with Bob Salamini, who's one of the top French ring guys, president of NARA, and we've talked about a good amount before, but and I don't know if you can, but like how do you try to keep like politics out of PSA? Like, so that way the person that got first place is actually the person that performed best versus like, well, he knows the judge and the judge hates this guy, and you know how it goes in a lot of ring sports. Like, what do you do to try to help prevent or mitigate that as much as possible?
I think first and foremost is you have to have judges in your judges programming that have your judges program that have integrity. And so that's something that we look for before we accept anybody into our judges program. They have to show a history of integrity, and the way they show that history of integrity is in terms of their competition, body of work. And so, in order to be a judge in PSA, we demand that people have at least a level 2. And if not a level 3, most of our judges have level 3 on their dogs. But if not, they've been very active for a long time in the sport. They're training directors. They're decoys at a high level, that sort of thing. So I think for us, it's a small world, in the suit sports. And there's wherever you have a gathering of people, you have politics.
Correct.
It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, you have
And that's why I said, how do you try to mitigate
you
it?
have you have office politics in a
Yeah.
small business. You know what I mean? Like it's just the way it is. And I think a lot of it just comes from how things are handled like that at the top. If they're not tolerated, then they're not tolerated. I have to. I have to do a lot of counseling sessions with people occasionally. You have clubs that are having breakups and things like that, and you would be amazed at what goes into just dealing with all the personalities in the sport that's gone international. I go to bed after having talked to people in Australia. I wake up in the morning with messages on my WhatsApp from South Africa, and
It's like having another business, I'm assuming.
it's for sure. It is. It's a business
yeah.
that I don't get any money from. That's the problem.
It's that nonprofit.
Yeah, a full-time nonprofit.
It pretty much. Yeah, and I have to say this is, like early on in the in the first years, I definitely did a lot of work, but our PSA secretary Katrina Williams, her and all the secretaries, Rolla, Cindy, Haley, and Stephanie, like they
lighten your
much.
load a lot.
Oh my God, they do so much for us
That's awesome.
to make it easy. And then we have great directors. Each region has its own director, and they really put a lot of thoughtful work into resolving a lot of the conflicts in their own regions, building their regions, getting people on board and involved. And people don't realize that there's nobody gets paid in PSA at that level, right? So we're all donating our time to build it because we love the sport.
Correct.
And so so there's no compensation for having a conversation at 10 o'clock at night because one of the clubs in your region is falling apart because of some personal disagreement or something like that. You have to talk people off the ledge, and it's just
It's a sport of passion.
It is, yeah. So people do get a little passionate, and so sometimes you have to caution people to
Bring them back down.
Yeah. We're every once in a while you're talking somebody off the ledge, that's for sure.
Now, PSA 3 dogs. Very few of them, right?
Very few, yeah. 18 handlers and like 16 dogs, I think.
These are some of the most legit dogs in the world when it comes to protection
I think so,
and
yeah.
obedience, right? I mean, it's very, very difficult to, obviously, you have 400 members and only, what, you said 18 handlers that have gotten that far in 18 years.
Yeah,
so,
it's crazy.
I mean, that's
It's an average of one a year.
That's insane. And walk us through, if you wouldn't mind, a PS3 trial.
Well, you're going to heel out to the start cone. The judge will be out there. There'll be a ring steward out there. You'll have just gone through a handlers meeting where they walk you through what your routine is going to be. And so, as a level 3 competitor, you basically know what behaviors your dog has to do. You don't know what combinations of those behaviors there could be. You're going to have to do a retrieve through an obstacle or over a jump or something like that. But you may have to, throw the retrieve item, or the decoy may throw the retrieve item, or the decoys are talking to you or shooting silly string over the jump while you're retrieving. Your dog may have to pick it up, come back over the jump, sit, on command on the way back, do a change of position, and then come and deliver it, to hand. That's just, a possibility. It could be any number of combinations of the basic behaviors your dog has to do. Then there's all that, what people were most famous for is all that healing under pressure. So, you're healing out there, and you got four decoys running around your dog, going bananas, trying to distract your dog and get them to, basically try and get them to
entice
bite.
them, yeah.
Because once they bite, then it's over. Right?
Disqualified.
So you're DQ'd for the day.
Are you seeing? Do you generally at that level see a lot of dogs go for the bite?
It's getting less and less. Like you see
initially, everyone's taking it.
Initially, like in the first year, we didn't even, in the level 1, we didn't even have decoy on the field in obedience. And then then we put
you evolved it.
Yeah, we put a decoy sitting in a lawn chair, in the obedience routine. You just had to heel past him. He didn't do anything. And the first 2 years that we did that, like, people would say heel, and the dogs would just like, just like a missile go knock the guy out of the chair. Some dogs would bite and not want to let go. And now I honestly say, I think in the last, 2 or 3 years doing level 1 judging and being at trials, I think I've seen a dog bite a decoy twice.
Oh wow.
So it just shows you how the level
how
of
the training has evolved.
so much.
It's kind of like
right?
MMA.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you
right,
watch
yeah.
the 20 years ago
Yeah.
compared to now, it's
Like
a
even-
huge difference.
Like you know, and you know, and you know, I even tell people, I'm like, if you look at my, like people say, well, I looked at your level 3 from 2003. And I'm like, if you go back and look at that, it's like watching Babe Ruth hit a home run, right?
Yeah.
It's like I look at that and I'm like, I've evolved as a trainer so
Yeah.
much since then. Like I wish I knew then what I know now.
Correct.
I would have had a much better time. But we were all evolving. Like we were all.
It's a
thinking
learning
about-
process.
Yeah, like we in the beginning we were not even sure how what kind of presentations we were giving the dogs in the suit, and it looked like there were a bunch of people doing jumping jacks all the time, and and that the decoy work evolved so much and got more fluid, and the guys are getting more and more athletic, and putting more pressure on dogs, and the dogs are getting better. People are like PSA 3 breedings are now a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people are like, oh, I'm waiting for this particular
Oh, wow.
breeding. So you have like you have a lot of people looking for that type of dog now that can go into PSA, and so they're looking for those lineages, and I think that's really one of the signs where people are saying, all right, well, just like ring sports and so forth, people want to get a dog from certain lines and that sort of thing that have been successful in that sport, and we're seeing more and more of that for PSA, just in general.
And how often is someone allowed to trial for PSA 3?
Like
for
I
example?
failed it. When can I try again?
Right.
You can try the next day. Like
Okay.
So how many? That's kind of going off of my. So with that being said, do you get a lot of people that are already PS2 and they're going to trials every time, just hoping?
we've got
The stars line
that's
up.
what I would do. At least.
Just hoping the stars line up.
Any given Sunday, you know what I mean?
Well, we've got a few people that do sort of the shotgun approach to trialing.
Just show up and see what happens.
Yeah, show up and hammer away at it and chip away at it. The problem is, you don't want your dog to get too trial wise. So, you have to be careful about not training enough in between. But people do, in my opinion, some people show a little bit too much. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they won't have a good day on that day, right? So,
Correct.
And I would imagine most of the handlers and the members of PSA, that's their ultimate goal is to get PSA 3. I mean, who is going to be like, oh, I got PSA 1, I'm good,
done.
I'm done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're always pushing forward, right?
Honestly, you have a lot of people that come to PSA with the dog that they have, right? And so once they get into it, they're like,
I need a
know
new
what?
dog.
not even that, but they may say to themselves, look, if I get a PSA and a PSA 1 on this dog, like that'll be my PSA 3 for this dog, and be reasonable about that sort of thing, and say, look, this will be the dog I start learning on. I'll get my feet wet in the sport with the dog that I have, and then think about getting a dog that's a little bit more appropriate for the type of work that they're going to do.
I feel like you see that a lot in ring sports.
Yeah,
like in
and
French
it's-
ring, people show up with like their Rottweiler,
Right.
and then they're like, all right, got it to like Brevet or whatever,
Right.
and now I'm gonna get a Mal from this litter and try to take it all the way.
Yeah, we do see that a lot, and I think that's a smart thing to do, is to say, all right, I'm going to give it a try. We're an all breed organization. We don't care what you bring
cool.
out. You don't have to have pedigrees on dogs. You can
Awesome.
bring out
What's
crossbreeds.
the in the 18 years? What you already know where this is going. In
yeah.
the 18 years, what's like the most off the wall breed that you've seen show up?
Oh, I'm not much of like a. I don't know very much about like the Mastiff and Band Dog,
Yeah.
world. So not to disparage it, but I've seen people bring dogs out that they call something that I've never like literally heard of.
Yeah.
It's some obscure Mastiff breed or something like that. We've had giant schnauzers. We've had what do they call them? The Beaucerons.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
those
yeah.
ones, yeah.
Early on.
You see
we
any
had-
Lacanois?
there was a couple of people who had Lacanois. It's hard to find a Lacanois.
Yeah,
in
no, you don't see
Belgium
many.
For,
And
What
out, out of all 16 PSA 3 dogs,
How many aren't Malinois?
there's
0.
Joe Parks got his PSA 3 on a German Shepherd, and another trainer got one on a Cane Corso. So
Oh,
Awesome.
Cane Corso,
Oh man,
wow.
I'd like to see that dog. I
Yeah.
bet that's a badass dog, huh?
Hurt from a hidden sleeve, probably.
probably, yeah.
Yeah. So to probably out that you can think of
off the
that
top
aren't
of my head,
Mal's.
most of them are Malinois. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how much does, if you could give a percentage on it, Jerry, how much does genetics play into PSA 3 dogs? Is it, because I would imagine nerves comes into play, heart, everything comes into play when you get to that kind of level of training. Is it, we've had several decoys on the show in the past, and it's always genetics versus training once you get to that level. What is your opinion on that?
It's something actually I've been thinking about a lot, just from a perspective of being a dog trainer. I think we're learning a lot more about what role genes and environment play. And if you look at the epigenetics literature, environment can turn on and turn off genes, right? So, if you can have a genetic beast, but if it's in the wrong hands, it might not necessarily develop the way that you want it to develop. Right?
Yeah.
So
Just like people.
Yeah. It's like. People are talking about cloning dogs and things like that nowadays, right? And it's like if you clone, if you had a dog and you put it in the hands of one of the world's best trainers, you know what I mean, and you said, well, I want to take that dog and I want to clone it, and you get the same basic genetics, I guess.
If you give it to the same handler.
But if you give that same dog to somebody different, I always say if. We're all good at training certain types of dogs, and I've had dogs in the past that I had one that I got my PSA 3 on, Ricardo, who's extremely handler aggressive. He bit 4 people in Holland and put 2 of them on permanent disability before I got him, and then I got him, and he taught me a lot about patience and not being emotional when I train.
Gloves.
When when for the first year you're literally scared of your dog. It's a very humbling experience.
You're like, I'm too young to go on disability.
Yeah. So so I always figured if somebody else had him, you know what I mean? Like, I got offered a lot of money for that dog early on. We were doing just a protection show somewhere down in Florida. And my dog went after the judge, and he had to fend him off with his metal clipboard. He launched right into his shoulder, and he fended him off.
my
with
God.
Someone's like, I want that dog.
Yeah, and one of the decoys there, Gus Artilius from Florida, he came out of nowhere and just basically saved him, and got him on the suit. And I was mortified. I got him 5 months ago, and and there were so many people at this protection trial. And I was so mortified that had happened. And
That walk of shame back to the parking lot.
yeah.
Huh?
Well, we were in the banquet hall waiting for the results and having dinner, and I was just off sitting by myself, feeling shameful. And then the judge, his name is he was a USPCA judge named Noel Coward, and he lives in South Florida. And so Noel comes walking up to me, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know what I'm gonna say to this guy. I'm so sorry. He comes up, he's so sorry, and he's like, I would like to buy that dog.
Wow.
And I said respectfully, no. But honestly, and not because I didn't think he could handle him. It was just I had to get control of that dog.
It was your mission.
It was a mission after that. I was like, I don't want to be. And that dog embarrassed me many times in competition. But
It's part of the learning process.
It absolutely is. I mean, if the thing about competition is it will humble you. You know what I mean? You get out there amongst people who are, highly qualified and working hard, and to get back to your question, a lot of, there's certainly no question that good genetics makes a big difference. If your dog doesn't have the genetics, it's very hard. But a lot of people go through dogs one after another saying, oh, I didn't have the genetics I want, didn't have the genetics I want.
At some point you have to question the training.
It's this is not a podium dog, this is not a world champion. I'm like, it'll never be a world champion dog in your hands because you're not good.
Right.
You suck as a handler, right?
Right.
So work something that's at your level. And I think more often than not, there are a lot of dogs that have really good genetics, and a lot of the differences in the quality of the training.
Just not being maximized. One of my good friends, and who I consider a legend in the world of dog training, George Hickox, one of my favorite things that he said, I had him on a Facebook Live 2 years ago with me, and I asked him, he's a big trial guy for hunting dogs and all that, and asked him pretty much the same question. He said, the answer that he always gives, and I'm like, wow, I really like that. He says you need 3 things to be highly successful: genetics, nutrition, and training. He says, and in his opinion, if you eliminate or make any one of those 3 really shitty, then you're not going to maximize your dog. If you have a great dog and a great handler, but you're feeding it shit, and it's not getting the energy it needs and the protein it needs, and it's not going to perform at its peak level, just like people. Or if you have great nutrition and an amazing genetic dog but shitty training, so he's like, to me, if you eliminate any one of those 3, it takes you away from a national championship essentially. So I really like his genetics, nutrition, and training, like that 3. Those are the 3 things that you have to have. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely would. I think probably along with training is discipline, right? I mean, you can be a really good trainer, but if you're not disciplined to really work your dog, you're going to have a hard time competing in PSA, because there's so many things your dog has to know. That's what most of the new people that come in, they're just like, they see a PSA 3 for the first time, and they're like
overwhelmed.
It is very overwhelming. And so a lot of what we do in our welcome seminars when we talk to people is like, okay, now you gotta look at this big journey. You gotta break it down into steps, and you gotta make it manageable for yourself, right? And and you can do that, right? There's information out there. We present it to clubs when they form, and there's good seminars that we put on that to make sure people can understand, how do you break it down, how do you train efficiently. That's a big thing, because you got so many things you got to prepare for. You got to train really efficiently, and if you don't train efficiently, you're going to run out of time. I usually end up getting dogs that are problem dogs that other people either gave up on, or stopped training because they couldn't handle them or something like that. The 2 dogs that are in the back of my truck were exactly that. I got them, when they were 3.5 years old each. And, so, as going on this journey with them, it's, I'm fixing a lot of problems that came from other trainers, but I kind of like doing that.
Correct.
I've done I raised a puppy when I was in my IPO years, and I enjoyed it. I trained a dog that was fairly green at 10 months and got my PSA 3 on him, and both of those were the easy ones. It was my KMPV dog that I had to retrain for PSA, and now I've got, the 2 dogs that I have, and one of them had an IPO title before I converted him over to PSA, which had some pluses and minuses. He already had some good behaviors, that really strong behaviors, well trained, but he was a little bit out of hand when I got him. And and then Drago, my other dog, he'd been passed around, unfortunately, a bit in his early life, and and so there was a lot of work that was left to be done with him. And and both those dogs humble me on a weekly basis, and I think it's important to have that happen too. It's not easy. You can I've had many dogs in my life. I've been in dogs now for like 25 years. Had many dogs in my life, and they all teach you some really important lessons about discipline. And so I try and be with all the traveling I do and everything, I try and be very disciplined about my training, because I miss a lot of days during the week, and if you're gone, if you're busy, if you're judging,
those
like
days
that,
add up
those
over the
days
year.
add up over the course of the year. And so you really have to put the time in when you have it. That's why I travel with my dogs, so I can do some stuff with them. To keep them active and that sort of thing. Even when I'm traveling, I try and do that. So it's it's a challenge to get all the training in that you need. And then to harken back to what you'd originally asked about in terms of what a PSA 3 looks like. That obedience routine is nuts, right? And you have to get 75% to be able to pass. Back in the day that I did it, the rule was you had to have an 80% to pass. So
they made it more handler friendly.
Even though it was, and I'm not, like the expectations were a little bit less and a little bit different in those days for the technicality of the obedience routines. That's evolved as well. So I think it was a good move to do what we did. I don't think we made it easier per se. We're expecting a little bit more out of the dogs now in terms of speed and precision, even at that level with all that distraction. But there's not that much margin for error. When you're talking about you can only lose 25 points and still be able to title, and then you go 3 or 4 protection scenarios, and there's just general guidelines written. There's one judge's choice surprise scenario. You can pretty much do it every once. One where they test some sort of environmental stressor. A lot of times it could be the room of doom where the dog goes in. They've got water dumped on the dog, chainsaws going, and a bite in a tight space, and that kind of stuff. Like there's sometimes there's smoke and all that kind of stuff going on. We had a one of our judges had a little smoke grenade thing go off, and I think they rented a U-Haul or something like that, and got inadvertently thrown into the U-Haul and caught the U-Haul on fire just a little bit.
Oh my God!
It was
Little damage.
Yeah.
Controlled chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got that kind of stuff going on. Then you have to do a call off scenario and the courage test scenario. So there, you have to do there's area searches and muzzle attacks and the level 3. So there's a lot of cool
moving
stuff.
parts.
A lot of moving parts. A lot of things to train for. Yeah.
Now you said that you started doing IPO. Do you still do IPO at all, or just main focus PSA?
I don't have time.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
I have. And here, a lot of people don't realize this, but I have a ton of respect for people that do IPO. Like we have a few people that are in PSA that also are big IPO competitors. We have one woman in our club, Teresa Courier, who's been on the world team in IPO, and she's doing PSA with her dogs now. And like I have a ton of respect for not only how hard it is to put 3 phases together on the same day and score high in it, even if it's not surprise scenario, what it's all about. You know exactly what it's going to be. Putting all those 3 scenarios together after traveling or putting your dog on a plane and going to Europe to do a trial, man, people don't, unless you've ever tried it, you don't realize how hard.
Yeah,
it is.
and typically for free. I mean, you're not making any money, so
No.
you're doing all that shit, and it's actually costing you money. So
thousands.
there has to be passion involved in that.
Oh,
for
sure. There's tons of passion, and I know, every time I get around, good IPO trainers, I learn stuff, and so it's fun for me to be around trainers that are passionate about what they do, and and are able to teach each other things. So there's a lot of, for me, there's a lot of respect that goes into competing in any reasonable sport. I mean, nowadays you have all kinds of sports popping up, and
really do, yeah.
Calling them sports.
Yeah.
And that was going to be
sometimes
my
is a little,
next. That was going to be my next question. Actually, is I would have to assume, because PSA is such a new sport in relation to a lot of the other ones that have been around for way longer. I would have to assume that you catch a lot of hate from other sports, right? I mean, because I would have to assume that you're taking members from the IPO community, from the French ring community, from the Mondio ring community, and they're saying PSA is way fucking better. I'm converting. You know what I mean? So, do you see any of that, or is it the sport community is just together?
I can't. I'd
There's
be surprised if that was the case.
There's just like in every aspect of life, there's so much tribalism, right? So if you're in the French ring tribe, you know what I mean?
You're
then,
dedicated.
PSA is, a bunch of rednecks that get together. And, I mean, I don't know. I'm not really a redneck, but, if you're a Mondio person, you're in the Mondio tribe. If you're a PSA person, you're in the PSA tribe. The thing is that most of the reasons that there's all this tribalism is because people don't actually talk to each other and see what they do. So, if you went to a PSA trial, you would probably have a much different opinion about it if you went there and met the people and saw what goes into doing the work, right? And a lot of people, I think, that had, poor opinions of PSA have it because, like, it always amazes me when I look on Facebook and there's like, somebody will put up a post like, so which is the best sport, PSA, ring, or Mondio, or IPO, and then you get like 900
different
people
answers.
answering, and and there is a lot of hate flying back and forth,
Of
but
course.
it goes all ways though, and I think that's a problem. Is that we should, what's better, basketball or baseball?
Yeah,
or football,
it's a personal
or,
preference.
a lot of it comes down to personal preference. Some people like the technicality of IPO where you're chasing 300 points and you know exactly what you're trying to do. And so, you go out and you score a 298. Wow, damn, you did something pretty special there, right?
Yeah.
Especially at a big trial. But that doesn't mean that person can, pop over into PSA and they're going to be scoring,
And kill it.
98%. It's not going to happen, right? So, it's a different sport, and some people don't like that aspect of it, that it's unpredictable.
Correct.
Right. And some people love the aspect
because that's
of it
reality.
they love the aspect of it that it's unpredictable. And one of the reasons why we like that is because, like, for me and my business, I'm a police dog trainer.
So it's real world.
Yeah, we're always trying to figure out ways to knock the dogs off the rails a little bit in training, so that we can prepare for that kind of stuff in real life deployments and get these guys home, safely at night. And so for us, kind of, there's a lot of crossover. Ted Summers out in Oklahoma, he's
Torchlight Canine.
Yeah, he's a good friend, and he asked me when I was on his podcast. He said, "Did you come up with some of the aspects of PSA because you're a police dog trainer?" And I said, "Yeah, like some of the stuff that we were, the equipment orientation stuff that we do, the fended attacks, like all that stuff are things that you have to prepare for in real life high risk deployments. And if you're a police dog trainer, and it's stuff that we imported over into PSA. So yeah, we fend dogs off. We offer them sleeves to bite or couch cushions to bite, and see if they'll take that and not bite the suit, or not bite the bad guy, and
like going for
nature.
that target or equipment primary versus man primary.
Yeah, so we do a lot of that stuff, and then I I take a lot of the stuff that we do in PSA and I bring it back over, and I do my police dog seminars, and just doing simple things like I went to Walmart the first night I was in Ocean City, and I bought like 3 baby pools, and I bring them out there, and I'm like, okay, just don't let this dog come to his high target. He loves to bite up high, doesn't like to go into legs, so just fend him off, just frustrate the hell out of him, and let's teach him to go into the legs. And then some of the dogs started to learn, oh, I can go underneath this thing, and then if then the handler started to realize, well, if my dog is not willing to go low or something like that, my dog might not engage, and then and then we've got a dog that's not engaging, and then we got to fight the guy, and then it's a whole big mess.
Sure.
And so so I think there's a lot of crossover there that's relevant as it can be for a sport. In a sport, ultimately your job is to put out a performance that can be judged, and we can judge you relative to other people doing the same thing. And so there's then you got the people on on Facebook who are like it's nothing, nothing's real enough for them, and it's like, well, it's on some level,
warriors.
On some level you have to have rules. It's like it's like, well, MMA fighting is not real, man. Okay, well, yeah, if you wanna try and
bloodfest.
If you wanna try and rob with a blunt instrument an MMA guy on the street, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean, you'll see in a minute.
You'll get destroyed.
Yeah, you'll see in a minute how not real it is, right?
Yeah.
But the same thing is true for any type of sport. You have to have rules. Like you can't go into MMA and say, oh, it's okay to gouge somebody's eyes out
and bite them,
bite them or kick them in the nuts. I mean, it's not okay. Right?
Yeah.
So barring that, we have to, we say,
and
okay.
a lot of it's for the dog's safety too.
Oh,
just like the MMA fighters, there's rules in place for their safety, so they can
continue to do it.
Yeah,
if
it takes 3 years to get
your
it,
eyes gouged out in your first fight, you're gonna have a short career.
or
right?
or for the dog, if it takes 3 years to get a 3 and anything goes, like, all right, I'll just fucking stab the dog when it comes in for a bite. It's like, I win.
Yeah, there's only
you have to have
so
rules.
much you can do. So, but yeah, the rules, like you said, the rules are in place for the safety of the dogs, the safety of the handlers, and also to be able to evaluate. And that's what it comes down to. It's a sport, and so you could it's just like in golf. You can say, oh, I can hit a golf ball the farthest. Okay, well, how accurate are you?
Exactly.
You know what I mean, there are guys out there on that long distance drive thing that they just crush the ball farther than most of the pros do, right? And you're like, okay, well, why is this guy not on the pro tour? That's probably because he can't putt, or right, or he has no short game.
Or like
we actually talked about this last week, actually.
And say, or if you're like Joe and you're like the master of putt at Miniland, why aren't you on the pro circuit?
Which I am. I am, by the way.
You would think with being able to putt around corners and under
and the windmills and you would just kill
like
it.
Can I just say that
just on a flat
I've
green.
literally never been beaten in my entire life in mini golf.
Oh,
so-
he's telling the truth. That's why I use that as an analogy.
Really?
So, yeah.
So
That's a bold statement, right
hey,
there.
man,
There
I
are
accept
people-
all challenges.
There are people.
Are you free for like 2 hours after this podcast?
It won't take that long, Nick.
He's like, give me 10 minutes.
No, I do have a question. We get this a lot, especially when we have other sport guys on here. We had a couple of helper decoys from IPO last week's show, and then we're going to have some French ring guys on in future episodes. But we get this question a lot: is can you take a PSA dog and just say a PSA 3 dog, okay, the best of the best, right? Can you take a PSA 3 dog and immediately go title it in another sport, even if it's a Title 1 in another sport? Like if you have a PSA 3 dog, correct? If you had your dog, could you take it and go do Mondio?
Or French ring, or
Well, it depends. Like French ring is one of those sports that's off by itself because of just the way it's
very
structured,
specific.
Right.
It's a competition between the decoy and the dog, right? So the decoy is trying to make the dog
Correct.
miss, and and everything else in KNPV, IPO, Mondio, the dogs
To help.
dogs are given a target, right?
Yeah.
They're allowed. We don't like snatch the target out of his mouth. So if you're training, like one of the basic things you train in French ring is how to deal with the esquive. Well, we don't. If you esquive a dog in PSA, we throw you out of the trial. Right. So that's just.
So
that's-
they're not
that's
trained for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're trained to give stable targets and that sort of thing. And so so the dogs can be it's like if you take a big giant KNPV dog and send him on a really skilled French ring helper, he probably won't ever
He's gonna
get a
smoke
bite.
him.
He won't get a bite.
Yeah.
Like I've seen that happen. A dog that launches from 10 feet away. And those French ring decoys are small and they're fast and they're super athletic and and have tons of stamina. I've seen a PH1 get esquived so many times the dog's just like he's ready to give up biting.
He's like, screw
Right.
this.
So, but then again, the difference is if you take a really fast ring dog and you put him into a situation where the helper's not going to esquive him, and that dog comes down and it's like spin the wheel where he's going to target. If you want to see how hard that dog comes in and hits, like we do in PSA, there has to be a stable target, otherwise it's dangerous for the dog. And we've seen dogs cross over from French ring to PSA, and the helpers don't know where the dog's going to end up, because they're trained to deal with esquives, and so whatever the dog perceives as the esquive move, even if it's just the helper setting up to
movement.
catch the dog correctly, usually what happens is they'll just jam them in a bad spot, and so a dog trained for that can be dangerous to cross over into PSA, and so it's almost not fair that you're not, training the dog the same way, right? And again, it's a high level. French ring is a high level sport. So, if you say, well, what about police dogs? People are trying to. They're not level 3 French ring helpers.
Oh,
You know what
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you're not that. Your average bad guy is not, an Olympic athlete, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So you might make my dog miss once, but he won't miss a second time probably for a street bite, right?
Yeah.
So that's very different. Now, crossing over from other sports is like if you cross over from IPO and your dog's never seen a bite jacket,
Sure.
then he's not going to
Or
understand
Schutzen
what
or-
to do, right? So,
Sure.
Yeah. So and the same thing. If you take my dog is I just won level 2 nationals with him last year.
Oh, congrats.
He goes, if you present a sleeve out in front of him, we've taught him to go over it and bite in the shoulder.
Nice.
So I wouldn't be fair for me to take that dog to an IPO trial and just on the off chance that he goes over the sleeve and bites the decoy in the shoulder. So there's a lot of things that are incompatible at some of the higher levels, but I would feel like I could probably like pass a Mondio trial at a low level. You know what I mean?
I was going to say the Mondio is probably the closest.
Environmental desensitization.
The closest
Yeah.
sport to
But,
PSA.
it's kind of the decoy work is a bit different.
Sure.
Just in terms of some of the intensity and that kind of thing, and what we do. We have drives incorporated into our work. We're really trying to pressure the dogs. So again, different. Obedience is different in terms of expectations. The obedience in French ring is a bit looser. So if you came into PSA or tried to cross over into IPO, your obedience probably wouldn't be acceptable. Right?
Yeah.
And that's just the way the sports are set up. It's just different rules.
That's what they're trained for.
So it's why it always makes me laugh when they like have these MMA boxer, like crossover matches and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, well, you can't, we're gonna fight, but you can't kick. Okay, well, you just
That's going to happen, by the way, with McGregor.
Right.
Like, literally, it is.
Yeah.
They announced it.
Yeah.
So, anyhow.
You know what I mean? And so when that stuff happens, it's like, well, now you just took away, half of that guy's tools.
25%.
Yeah.
Of what he can do.
Yeah.
And say, okay, well, now we're just gonna make him box, right? And so, nobody wants to cross over the other way. Usually, it's
That's why they stay where they're at.
Yeah. So so the crossover thing is really sort of in my
What
opinion,
sport would you say
red herring.
does crossover best to PSA? Mondio ring or?
Like, we've crossed a lot of dogs over from IPO with proper training to get them on the suit.
Sure.
That can cross over really well. We've seen a lot of dogs with proper training cross over. It's very different. They're used to healing on a little bit more of a sterile field, and all of a sudden when you got decoys out there and that
Taunting
kind of
them.
thing. For some of the dogs, I mean, they're so obedient that it's just not a problem.
Yeah.
But for other dogs that have a different temperament, or maybe a little bit stronger and a little bit more prey driven, that sort of thing, a little bit more impulsive, those dogs can have a little bit more trouble when they're faced with those types of distractions if they haven't seen them. And it's a lot of it is just I always tell people is, well, if you want to cross over, train the dog in the sport you're going to cross over to. If I want to cross over into a ring sport, then I have to go to somebody who knows how to train ring sport and have them teach me how to prepare my dog for it. I'm not going to just assume I'm going to like flop over there.
Just show up to a trial and
I'm going to go. I'm just going to come in. I'm going to go
Hey,
win,
guys.
win everything.
national champion.
Jerry Bradshaw here.
It's just never going to happen. You know what I mean? And there are techniques and technicalities and things like that in all of these sports that are unique. A lot of people in the beginning thought they could take any dog over and cross into PSA, and a lot of dogs got ran out into the parking lot. You know what I mean? Because the dogs weren't used to that type of pressure, and I've seen that happen many times. But on the other side of the coin, all the sports are different. They all have their relative merits, and a lot of it just boils down to what you like better. Do you want to go out and not know what you're going to have to do, or do you want to have a
Something to
regimen
train
prepare
for
that you know exactly what you're going to do? And different people like different things, and so it's okay to not be a PSA person and like French
Coke or
ring.
Pepsi.
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically what it boils down to, and it's okay to be the other way and say, look, I like this sport better than that one. We hope, we like to be welcoming, and if people cross over, we say be respectful of the fact that you're crossing over into a sport that has a history now. It's we haven't just been around for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We have a history. We have a lot of good trainers in it. There's a lot of training that's very specific to PSA that has to be done if you want to be successful. And the people that cross over, and if they do those things, they can be successful for sure.
If someone's interested in getting a PSA, how do they find out if there's a club near or around them?
www.psak9.org is our website. And if you go on there's a club list by region. We're broken into East, Midwest, West, and South regions in the United States. Canada is kind of like a region, even though it's another country. There are brothers and sisters to the north, and they're actually hosting nationals. Shout out to Mike and Ashley from Redline Shepherds and PSA. They're hosting nationals this year, and it's going to be an awesome event, indoor event.
And where is that?
It's going to be in right outside of Toronto.
And for those events, can anyone just show up to watch?
Yeah, every PSA event is free to come watch.
Nice.
We love when people come. People will talk to you if you come to a PSA event. Like if you show up and nobody knows who you are, they'll we'll say hello.
Fuck is this guy?
Yeah,
like we did this morning.
Right. Yeah.
No, that's cool. So
another
people can go to the website, find if there's a PSA club next or in their area, see
they-
where the events are taking place, show up if they want, and just
Yeah.
watch, check it
All the
out.
trials are open for people to come, and we encourage people to come and check it out. Yeah, for sure. And the club contacts are on there. So if there's a club near your area, you can definitely come out and and call them and they'll have you out to training, and hopefully we're hoping more people start clubs. It's one of those things where I always tell people are always looking for existing clubs, and I always tell people, if you build it, they will come. Like if you if you start a club, people will come
find
and
you.
will find you,
Yeah.
and then you can put together a good group.
Joe Zitzelberger.
So how do you start
PSA Club, Fredericksburg, Virginia.
We need one in this area.
How do you start a club? Like if I wanted to start one.
Easy. If you go on the website, there's it costs $100 to register a club. We don't really regulate the clubs. Some people run them as businesses. Some people run them as nonprofits.
Yeah.
But we will give you help in getting things started. You need 3 members to start out, and that's all you need. And the biggest, the 2 biggest things that I always tell people is, you have to have training decoys, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to travel a little bit to go to maybe more established clubs and
Sure.
and work together with people. And it's just like anything else. You have to get socialized into the sport, learn what the nuances are, what's expected on trial day, that sort of thing. So going to trials and sort of seeing what it's all about. Knowing how to prepare for it, knowing how to train the dogs. There's a lot of information that that a lot of these new clubs need. A lot of times there's really good trainers that are starting the clubs, and so it's just a matter of them learning the particularities of what has to be
nuances
trained.
of it.
Exactly.
And it's important because in PSA, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, in order to be a decoy, you have to get certified through PSA to be a decoy.
To be a trial decoy, yeah. You can
Okay,
be
for a
be
trial
club
decoy.
without having to be certified.
Without anything
right?
official,
Yeah,
essentially.
doesn't have to be anything official. A lot of people come out to the certifications, and it's Andrew Sterner, who has a club down in North Carolina. He next to us. He made a really cool video that he posted. His name of his club is Just Another Sport Dog. Really nice video of the decoy camp that Sean ran down there at his place. And Sean Siggins is my head police dog trainer and the director of decoys for PSA. And he ran the camp down there. And it's pretty impressive to see what we put these guys through to actually certify. And I recently had some meetings with some fairly high level IPO competitors, and they were like, I couldn't believe what you put these decoys through to certify them.
Yeah.
And it's not very many that come out to get certified, but there are a lot of people that come out that probably can't certify as a trial decoy, but can be a very, very capable and able club decoy that can help train the dogs. And I've never worked a PSA trial. I was kind of like too old right before I got into it. I never worked a PSA trial, but I certified a ton of PSA decoys that are some of the best that we have. And for me, I'm fortunate that I have so many good decoys in my club. Between having Sean there and Ben and Stefan, they're all certified PSA decoys, and some of our students and interns that really pitch in and help train on a weekly basis. But like those guys they're young and they're fast, and they put their heart into being good decoys. Not just good trial decoys, but also being really, really good training decoys. And so I'm very fortunate where I am at my club, and the same thing is true at a lot of clubs. They have a ton of decoys that are great training decoys and are also certified, trial decoys. But you don't need to be a certified trial decoy. If you're willing to travel a little bit and get on some faster, maybe helpers that have a little bit more power to them and that sort of thing, you can get your dogs ready. It's definitely possible. And then if you got people that are capable of getting better as trial decoys and learning the trial rules and how to present properly to the judge and all that stuff,
they can move on.
Then you can get certified. Sometimes it might take a camp or two to get through to be able to certify. But it's definitely possible if you're capable.
Now, for the clubs who take in members, and say a new member comes in with a dog, and the head decoy or whatever training decoy of that club, after evaluating the dog, is like, there's a 0% chance this dog will ever title in anything in its life, just based off of genetics and its handler, maybe. You know what I mean?
Right.
At that point, are you just like, all right, sorry, you got to go, or are they still allowed to train, and they'll just never trial, or how does that work?
It's kind of up to the individual club how they want to handle that. Like there's sometimes you get some really, really good dedicated members that, they have the dog they have. They don't have the resources to get, another more expensive dog, let's say, or raise a puppy or,
Right.
whatever the case may be. And if they can contribute in other ways,
Sure.
they might be a great club member to have, and they just might like to be around it and help where they can and do whatever they can with their dog. Maybe with the dog, a PDC is possible, or even getting through PDC obedience might be possible. I've had people show in PDC, do the obedience, and then just pull for the bite work because they're like, I know my dog's not going to do the bite work part, but at least it gives me something to shoot for until I can get another dog or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to be honest with people about that kind of thing and not give them false hope and collect dues from them for years, and and they're not
Keep
they're
dangling the carrot.
Yeah, they're not able to do it, and it's really hard because a lot of people get so invested in their dog on a personal level that when you tell them, well, you can't do this, they may show you different. We had our induction ceremony. I have to mention this because it's relevant, but we had our induction ceremony for all the new PSA 3 members this past year at Nationals in St. Louis, and Kylie Ra, who got her PSA 3. In her acceptance speech, famously, when she started working her dog, he had a bit of a cleft palate and some other issues when she started working him as a puppy. And I literally said to her when she was at my place, I said, why are you wasting your time training this dog, right?
So you gave her the motivation she needed.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a boy named Sue, right?
That's awesome.
So when she got her PSA 3, it was kind of like, well, here, stick it,
She gave you the shout out.
Yeah, she gave me a shout out at the banquet.
Congratulations to her
for giving her the motivation to stick with it, and
that's
show me.
awesome.
But she came before Nationals a few times, and we worked her and her dog, and she goes down to comes down from up north to Andrew's club and prepped for Nationals and that sort of thing, and her dog really turned out to be a great dog, and I was wrong about that one. I'll admit that. But a lot of that boiled down to, the dog did have good genetics, but she had to do a lot of
the work ethic,
a lot of workarounds to deal with that dog because he had some breathing issues and things like that. And so she really found some unique ways to work.
Good
that
for her.
particular
work
dog,
ethic can overcome almost anything.
Yeah, it sure can. And and there are a lot of dogs that probably have a ton of genetic capability, and you have these people that show up to clubs
that don't have the work ethic.
They don't have the work ethic, and you see these great dogs going to waste. And it's a shame, but it is what it is. That to me, the discipline of being a good trainer, especially a good sport trainer, is you really have to. You can't. It's not something you can just sort of
jump in and jump
arm.
out of.
Yeah, you gotta be all in, or And when I see people are like, oh, photography is my hobby, and I love horses, and I train dogs for PSA, and I'm like, you're gonna have to give up some damn hobbies if you ever want to go anywhere, And then they wonder why they're unsuccessful. It's like, well, there's only so many things.
Again, it's kind of a lot of this kind of reminds me. Maybe it's just because I did the Cody Garbrandt seminar, but talking to him, a lot of it kind of reminds me of like MMA.
Yeah.
It's like if you're like, hey, I want to be the next Cody Garbrandt. Well, if you show up to your jiu-jitsu gym once a week, you're not going to be the next UFC
You'd
world
have
champion.
to have some heavy fucking genetics, yeah.
Like you just have to stay dedicated and do it a lot in order to get to that peak level.
Genetics only takes you so far. Like, technique and training, especially at the higher levels in PSA, is so important. Your dog could be a genetic beast. You know what I mean? Just like,
Brock Lesnar.
I remember when I was first training my old dog, Ricardo, I failed so many trials with that dog because he bit when he wasn't supposed to. But he would, he was like almost, probably about a 90-pound Malinois.
Wow.
He was a launcher too. Like he would launch from far away. He would wreck people all the time. And I'd be heeling off the field and somebody come up and be like, oh, your dog is so awesome. And I'd be like, yeah, it'd be nice to pass a trial once in a while too, Like after a while, hearing what a genetic masterpiece your dog looks like when you fail.
Yeah,
if you fail enough times with the genetic masterpiece, and you're like, I really would like to pass once.
Yeah,
it'd be kind of a novel thing for this dog to do is to do what I ask him to. But there, there's a lot of that is I had to work really hard with that dog to get him to where I got him. With the techniques and training that I knew back then, was definitely. You'll see a lot of people in PSA when they get their PSA 3 or even their first leg on their PSA 3, they cry in the critique.
Wow.
Because what you see is this overwhelming amount of work and frustration and am I ever going to get
All
there?
coming
And
out.
it all comes out when they reach that pinnacle. And a lot of people don't know what these people are struggling with their dogs. Like with my dog Drago, who's got his first leg on his PSA 2 at nationals last year. He had some health problems, and it was he had some diminished capillary stuff going on in his paws, and he chewed his paws off basically when I was away on a trip, and it took like a year for him to heal and all that stuff. And so I missed all this time with him, and I already got him when he was like 3.5 years old.
So you
And
really missed a lot of time.
That time was critical, and he had to be in a cone and a muzzle and stuff like that, and to not take the chance that he's going to chew on himself anymore. And we think we've got the problem licked, but at the same time I've lost so much time with him. And he is not a dog that's just like easy. He's
not a natural.
He is defiant. Like he's just very defiant. And so he's just one of those dogs you have to stay on top of and stay on top of and stay on top of all the time. And when you can't stay on top of him, then your training regresses and your progress regresses, and it's frustrating. So my expectations are always to aspire to the highest levels, but it's a sad thing when you feel like I'm running out of time. The horrible thing about owning dogs is they have a finite lifespan, a finite career in terms of being able to work at a high level. And when you start running up against those impediments, you're like, wow, if I only had more time, to work them. And I see a lot of people that waste a lot of time in their training with their young dogs, and I'm just like, man, I wish my dog was still 3, and I could do so much more with him. And you're just wasting all this dog's potential because you don't have the discipline to train him.
Like, I feel like I was just doing kind of the math in my head, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like almost PSA hasn't even, based off the years, 18 years it's been around, almost is impossible, almost, for it to reach even its peak. Just because, like, I was doing the math in my head, I'm like, all right, well, we figure the average dog, maybe Malinois Shepherd, lives to be 13, 14. Well, PSA has only been around for 8 years. It's only been fine-tuned, kind of where it's at. As you said, it's been evolving maybe over the last 5-10 years. So really in the last few years, almost dogs can be born and trained from birth into this sport. Because if I had a dog born, 15 years ago, he was at the first 3 years of PSA's founding, essentially, where it wasn't as fine-tuned as it was, the rules wasn't, the training wasn't. So really, right now, I feel like a dog can be born at 8 weeks and be trained in the prime of the PSA evolution. I mean, would you say that's correct?
That's a really good observation, and you're seeing that a lot more now, where people are getting dogs specifically to start in PSA. This is going to be my next dog. And one of my trainers, Ben, he just got a puppy that we imported from one of our breeders in Slovakia, and he started that dog from the beginning. And that dog's like a little over a year now, and he's done so much with it, specific to getting it ready for PSA. And a lot of people are getting puppies, training them specifically for PSA. John Katz, he's got a young dog named Cougar. That
I hear a lot about John Katz.
Yeah, he started training in PSA from the beginning.
And that's what I mean. I feel like probably 15 years ago, and correct me if I'm wrong, there wasn't people saying, I'm going to get an 8-week-old Malinois just to make him a machine at PSA.
No, a lot of the high-level competitors were, but not a ton of people, for sure.
So now is kind of it's really getting in its prime.
Yeah, because back then when it first started, PSA was something to try out.
Yeah.
Now
people are taking it serious now.
Yeah, now we've got people that are in it, and it's their focus, and it's their sport, and it's the one that they're going to continue to do.
They were waiting to see if it was the XFL.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and now they're like, "Fuck, it's the NFL." Let's let's get
people
involved.
are like, it'll pass.
Yeah,
No,
that's cool, man. So last week when we had it was IPO week. Last week we had a couple of helpers, Mark Torrance and Mark Payon, on here, and they were explaining to us that you can't even trial a dog until they're 18 months in IPO. I believe it was 18 months, yeah. Is there an age limit for a PSA?
Yeah, I believe it's 14 months is what we installed most recently. There were some people that were really rushing dogs in too early, and it's a lot of pressure for them to take. And I'm not a big believer in sort of the nanny state, so I'm not, I don't feel like we need to make rules for everything.
Yeah.
I think people should be smart enough not to do dumb shit. And
You would think, right?
If you're putting, if you're, I don't know if you've ever seen any videos with Sean Siggins, my head trainer, who's the director of decoys. He's 6'5". He may be 40 years old, but he's fast. He's got a lot of presence. You put, like a 12-month-old dog on him, even in a PDC, if you rush them into that and they have to confront that dude.
Yeah,
it's
intimidating.
Like it's not fair for the dog. The dog needs to be around a little bit, before
it's like having a
that thing
3
happens.
or 4-year-old
And then
roll with like Henry Gracie.
And then, exactly, right? And then you have people that then they're making excuses, as to why their dog didn't do well. And it's just like, come on, man, it's the obvious. He was too young to put in the trial. You shouldn't have done it. I caught some flack, over that. I was at a trial where that happened, and it's like, it is what it is. The rule was, you be smart about when you want to put your dog in. And, and so then, we decided, well, I guess we need to make a rule. And,
Put
to me, it's obvious, don't do it before they're ready. But, I have a tendency to wait a lot longer before I ever trial my dogs.
Okay.
And that's just, even when I have a young dog, when I had my green dog, got him at 10 months, and I didn't even show him in PSA until he was 3, and I was in PSA. So I was very patient to put him into a trial.
But when the founder of PSA doesn't do it till 3, that should be a clue to everyone else.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you would think, but a lot of people put their dogs in a little bit younger, and they've had success.
I was gonna say, what's the youngest that, if you know offhand, that you've had a PSA 3 certification dog? Like, what's the youngest age of dog has reached that? You know offhand?
I think somewhere around 3 or 4.
Okay, so
There've been a couple of gone through fairly quickly.
and are those generally dogs that have been gotten at 8-10 weeks specifically for PSA?
Yeah, for the most part, or they had their foundation
Very early on.
in another demanding
And
sport.
transitioned early on.
Transitioned early, yeah.
And this is another question we get all the time. And you can do a quick answer if you want. Every time we get a decoy in here, there's always one question: prey drive or fight drive as a trainer?
Fight drive's not actually a drive, so prey and defense are why dogs
Defense,
bite.
excuse me.
Yeah, prey and defense are why dogs bite. People talk about fight drive, but the desire to fight a man is something that was, we have to actually build in dogs.
It's not natural.
They're domesticated
Yeah.
animals. They don't want to fight a man. There's no survival
For fighting a
reason
person.
for fighting a human being.
Yeah.
Right? So that's not a drive. You can see prey drive
Well
in
said,
puppies.
man. Very well said.
You can see prey drive in puppies. You can see defense drive in puppies. When I was given a seminar at a police dog event, and I said, if you've ever had a litter of puppies, and you'll say you have them in your basement and it's dark, and you turn on the light and you start walking down the steps and you hear the puppies go, "Bark, bark, bark." That's defense right there. They're like, that's alarm barking.
Yeah, yeah.
Even in an 8-week-old puppy, 6-week-old puppy, you can see it. You can throw a balled up piece of paper and they'll go chase it, or chase a little rag or something like that. You can see it in a puppy. I never had a puppy launch out of the whelping box,
Just nail
to
you.
take me in my shoulder because it wanted to fight me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they don't know what that
I've seen a
means.
few pets like that.
Yeah. Well, that's under socialized.
Right, yeah. But they don't come out of the womb.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you said. I
Yeah.
think that's a good way to put it. Is there's no biological
None
reason
whatsoever.
to
It makes sense.
fight a
Yeah.
person. Just like there's no biological reason for a person to fight a dog.
So,
It's
are
like
you big into prey drive then, or
Well, it's like I'll plug my book, Controlled Aggression.
Okay.
where can I get that book?
On it's actually on Lulu Press, LULU.com, and you just search
We'll put the link
my
up.
name or Controlled Aggression. You can find it there. But it talks about prey drive and how to develop that side of the dog. It talks about defense drive, how to develop that side of the dog, and it talks about how to do drive channeling, which is to teach the dog to go back and forth. The problem with not doing defense training with the dog is you will find something that'll put that dog into defense. You will find some level of pressure or stress or threat that causes that dog to react defensively.
A scenario
where
you
he
set
feels
up, or-
like he is in danger himself. I don't care how strong a dog you think you have. If you do enough police training and enough scenarios and enough crazy places with enough environmental stressors, you will find something that will push a dog
Weakness.
into defense,
Yeah.
right? There's no dog that's just ironclad. I'm sorry if you think that's the case, you just haven't worked enough.
But
dogs.
we just a couple weeks ago we just had Paul Ludwig and Sam Edmonds on from Canine
Yeah.
Guardians, and as you know, like that's what they pride themselves in, is working with the police department, the police canines, and saying, what is this dog's weakness? And we're gonna find, is it when we dunk it underwater when it's on a bite, like it lets go, or when I pick it up, like. So yeah, I think they would definitely agree with that. Is there's no 100%
you're
solid.
Gonna, it's just like
like a
anything
person.
else. Yeah, the comparisons to MMA. Like every fighter has a weakness.
Nate Diaz got Conor McGregor on his back, and he submitted him.
Yeah.
That his weakness was ground game
Yeah.
compared to Nate Diaz.
But I think a lot of people see these high prey dogs and they just think that they're undefeatable,
just savages,
and they are for the most part. Very strong dogs. Like you have prey driven dogs, and then you have what my friend Stuart Hilliard calls non-classically aggressive dogs. They don't show aggression in terms of showing the teeth and the snarling and in a classical defensive posture. It's non-classically aggressive, which is just basically what we call a prey monster dog. And like a lot of the special ops guys like those types of dogs. So if you come from a background where you see a lot of ranger dogs, or you see a lot of seal dogs and stuff like that, they tend to be like that because they just want them to go in and be unconscious and just and go in and bite anything.
Yeah.
And most of them can do that and do it without having to deal with a whole lot of stress. But you will find something that will stress that dog. And if you never prepare that dog to be able to deal with being in a defensive mood, if you can't find those things, you can't push that dog into defense and teach him how to deal with being at a position of disadvantage, then you're gonna that dog will get run from something.
Or get the handler killed.
Right? And if the dog runs, then the handler's now he has to deal with a
threat on his own,
running around and not engaging, and the suspect, and and that's a lot for a canine handler to have to deal with. So so we try and find some of those things with your dog, and in order to help build it, right? So I think people who deny the role of defense training are kidding themselves, right? You just, in my opinion, you haven't seen enough dogs and to make that determination. I think I think you can get a dog that's extremely equipment oriented, and and a bite suit is a piece of equipment, and we did it this weekend with some of the dogs that are super high prey drive. They've had real street bites. And you put somebody, passive and prone, laying on a bed and cover them in a sheet, and the dog comes in there and he's like, "Oh, what the heck is this?" Right?
Because they're just used to the moving and yelling,
you're used to seeing things, or at least seeing a human form standing up, or whatever the case may be, or they're used to seeing a bite suit or something like that. And the dogs that see that for the first time and don't get a little confused or don't get a little put off is very rare. There's some of those dogs came in there and just grabbed we had them, facing with their butts toward the door, and the dog came in. We had a couple of them just going in and house them right in the ass, because that was the closest thing to him, and blasted him without even a thought. And that.
But then again,
a lot.
that's a scenario where maybe that same dog would fail a different scenario.
He might not have seen something else.
Yeah,
something like that. And
reminds me a lot of the Paul Ludwig, Sam Edmonds talks that we had. Same thing, just putting dogs through their paces, and
both police canine trainers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, there you go.
Pressure is something that's relative to each dog and their genetics and what they've seen growing up, and you have to understand that. I think a lot of people who haven't trained a lot of dogs to do these high level things and deal with that kind of stuff, or they've just like imported dogs and resold them to high
Flipping
end
them.
people. You know what I mean? Like, if you said you have to have a certain type of genetic beast to sell to tier 1 operators. That's just the case. And so, those dogs are going to still have to go through a lot of training where they might have to deal with stuff that they're afraid of.
yeah,
And the question is whether they can quickly overcome it, and then they can generalize it,
bounce back.
But that dog might get put into defense by something, and you have to be able to deal with it. Either their prey drive is so powerful and strong it carries them through everything, but I've seen dogs that have mega prey drive and seem
find a hiccup.
They seem like they're bulletproof, and they're not.
Yeah.
I've never seen a bulletproof dog in my whole life.
It just means you haven't done enough scenarios with them.
I 100% believe that, and I've told people before. I said, you can bring whatever you think is the strongest dog you have. You give me a bite suit and a stick,
You'll find
or
something.
an endless supply of sticks, and as long as I can still breathe, you know what I mean, I will make that dog stop biting.
Yeah.
100% you can do it.
Yeah, well, it's like, again, my good friend Bob Salamine, who's really well known in French ring, he always says that, same thing. He says, do you want me to train your dog or do you want me to test your dog?
Exactly.
He's like, you can bring the most savage you can find, and I'll find something to make them run off the field if that's the goal that you want.
Yeah, as long as I'm wearing a bite suit and the dog can't really hurt me, you know what I mean? And I have free reign to to get that dog tired enough to where he decides self-preservation is a better strategy, right? And these dogs are evolutionary animals. They've learned to preserve their genetics for another day if things get too hot, and they have absolutely no ego. So when it comes time for them to say, I'm out, peace out, I'm not biting, I'm not doing
I'm
this
out
anymore.
of air.
I've literally seen dogs on a courage test, get stopped in their tracks, run away from the threat, and run past the handler, out the gate, into the parking lot, and jump back in their crates.
Wow.
They're looking for some safety. And it doesn't happen very often anymore, but it does happen.
And one of the things one of my really good friends, Cody Talent, talks about when it comes to that, though, which I think is a very valid point that's worth mentioning, is yes, you can probably run some of these savage dogs off a field because you're in a fully protected suit, but take the suit off, you let the dog do what he does, you do what you do, and then see if the outcome would still be the same. Would they run you off the field?
That's true.
So I think that's definitely worth mentioning. So to people out there, is you're protected in a suit. It's like, so you can do a lot to the dog when what he does doesn't affect you, but what you do is affecting him.
Let me put it to you this way, though. If I can do something to the dog before he ever gets on me that pushes
fair.
him away, then he's never going to engage. And failure to engage is a real thing in police dogs. Right? So, failure to engage doesn't mean he got on the bite and I ran him off the bite.
Yeah.
If that dog lays into you and gets you, chances are you're either going to pass out or I've never
or stop.
People talk a really good game about like, wow,
what I would do,
I would do. And I've seen pet dogs bite people in a hand, and they're like passing out within 10 seconds. You know what I mean?
That's
it's
Sean.
Like, oh, yeah.
they got a scratch.
Right? And then they started to get a little bit lightheaded.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, come on,
I need
sit
water.
down. Yeah, I need water. Yeah. But the reality is a lot of dogs get run before they ever get on the bite. And that's the pressure that you don't have to be a decoy to bring that pressure. If you push that dog into defense, and his defense threshold might be kind of high, but the thing is with defense and pressure, it's cumulative. So if I throw a whole bunch of things at the dog at the same time,
bunch of stressors one after another.
It's a dark room, it's slippery floors, the slippery floor is wet, and I'm wrapped up in a tarp, and I've got a leaf blower, I've got some other thing
fireworks going off,
or a noise the dog hasn't heard before or something like that. It's possible that dog just puts on the brakes and gets overwhelmed and runs out. And that's why we do the things that we do in training to prepare the dog to see all these types of different distractions and things like that, and teach him how do you negotiate through these things. When you feel stressed, what do you do? And I think another good MMA analogy for that is, one of the things that makes MMA sets it apart from other fighting sports is what they teach you is how do you fight from disadvantage. And so if you train your dog both in prey, and I'm not diminishing the amount of prey work that you need to do with the dog to make it right, but if you teach your dog how to fight from disadvantage, when you really put pressure on him, when he really feels like he has no other choice but to fight you, that he can muster the courage to do so, that's partly a learned behavior, and it's partly our job as trainers to teach these dogs when they feel stress, how do you cope with it, how do you negotiate it. And I would say to anybody, if you come out to a PSA trial, one of the things you see is how do you cope with something you're afraid of.
Yeah.
And, we're putting all these things on these dogs, which is, nothing can hurt the dog. And that's the thing of it. Nothing can hurt the dog, but we're giving that dog things that he might not have thought about before or had to deal with.
Correct.
I was given an example at my seminar of there was a trainer out in California years ago named Art O'Keefe. And, he would do police dog seminars, and he would take a sheet of newspaper and just put like a hidden sleeve on. He was a pretty tough old dude. And he would go hide in a building. You send your dog in, and then he would hold a sheet of newspaper out in front of most of the dogs, and they think it's a barrier, right? Because they've never
psychological barrier.
Yeah, it basically is. And then he would show these handlers that your dog won't go through it. To him, he thinks it's a concrete block.
Yeah,
because he's never dealt with something like that, right? And so when you wrap yourself up in a sheet or a tarps, or wrap yourself in it, like if you had to do an apprehension in a building and the guy was in the shower. Right, and
becomes a psychological barrier.
And there's this barrier in front of him. He's like, how do I get around it? Now, some dogs will push right around it. Some dogs will push through it. Some dogs might bite through it, right? But you have to teach them how to do that stuff, right? That's part of the training. And when the dog gets caught where he's in indecision like that, we call that conflict. He doesn't really understand what to do to resolve the problem, and not knowing how to resolve a problem can cause him to want to go into avoidance, right? So we have to be real careful about the terms that we use and how we say things. Whenever people say all or nothing statements in dog training, I'm always hesitant about that, right? But I see a lot of training that is all prey based, and that's okay to do prey based training. There's nothing wrong with it. You want to teach your dogs, the way you teach your dogs the mechanisms of biting and biting hard and biting full and being committed and all that stuff is through prey work. But if you neglect the defense side of the dog, then you're making a huge mistake, in my opinion.
Very cool. Couple of lighter questions to kind of to end this up. How many personal dogs do you have?
Well, I have my two dogs
Okay.
that I compete with. We have a Papillon in the house.
Nice.
We share.
I assume PSA 3.
Yeah. If you like a true savage, we share him with my girlfriend's mother. She has an older boxer and lost the boxer lost its companion dog, so Dash goes over there to visit quite often and stay often. So, and then my girlfriend Stephanie's pet dog Rico lives in the house. And so he's a Malinois that she competes with, and he's also a house dog, and I feed him from my plate, and I give him peanuts and stuff like that.
So you do all the things that you tell owners not to do.
I ruin him.
Nice.
On a
Sleeps
daily
in the
basis.
bed.
Yeah. No, he doesn't sleep in the bed so much. He's kind of a bed hog, but I do. I spoil him a little bit. And then we just got a new dog, a little American Eskimo dog.
Nice.
That's ostensibly was gotten because we needed to test the personal protection dogs with small dogs. So Stephanie decided that we needed another dog because Dash was too small and too fragile, right?
to be tested.
To be tested with these German Shepherds and stuff that might, step on him or something like that and break a leg. So we had to get something a little more sturdy, but was still kind of small. And so she got this little American Eskimo dog, and he's got this crazy nice white fluffy coat and everything. He seems very nice.
So the Papillon or the Eskimo, do you put any training on them, or are they just the dogs that just walk around the house?
Stephanie taught Dash to jump up and down.
Oh, cool.
All the essentials.
Yeah. I taught him how to when I'm sitting on the couch, if I put my hand under the blanket, he'll do the Arctic fox thing where he'll dive into it. I've taught him to do that.
That's what I love about going to other dog trainers' houses. I'm like, all right, let's see what this beast does.
Our dogs are the worst.
Yeah, and they're like, sit. That's about it.
Yeah.
You never go to a carpenter's house to see all the finish work.
That's right. Or the
yeah.
plumbers. Yeah,
exactly. The pipes are always out in the open, right? So those are the dogs. And I have an old retired breeding dog. He was a SWAT dog in Germany, and I got him. He's 11 years old now. He lives outside, and Rudy, so he's still around. And then Stephanie also has another competition dog named Bolt, who's the son of my dog Drago.
Nice.
That she just got last November. So yeah, we got a house full.
Got a pack going, huh?
Very cool.
Full,
Do you have a go-to place, like a go-to breeder where you this is the place I go to for my Malinois, or no?
No. I just like to evaluate dogs as is. You know what I mean? Like the old Dutch saying, pedigrees don't bite. A lot of people get hung up on breeding and breeding lines and all that sort of stuff, and that's definitely something important. People have to pay attention to that. I don't.
To get to high level. Yeah.
I've always gotten most of my dogs by complete and utter accident. Like I wasn't looking for the dog at the time, and it just
it
came.
found you.
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of like love. You know what I mean? Like if you work too hard at trying to find it, you know,
If you're
what I mean?
swiping right too many times,
it's not going to work out for you. So you wait for the right one to sort of wander into your yard, kind of, right?
Yeah.
And so that's mostly has happened with me.
So you've actually never really been a big like, all right, let me go to this place, test this litter of these 8-week-old puppies, nothing like that.
No,
really.
like,
You just kind of wung it.
Yeah, a lot of people, like, some of the recent dogs that we've got in that some of our club members have gotten. I bred my dog Raptor a couple times, and we've got 2 of his progeny that are in our club. Actually an employee of Off Leash Canine up in Raleigh goes to our club, and Quigley.
Oh yeah,
she's got a Raptor.
Oh, that's awesome.
Pup. That she's getting ready to show at our trial, I think.
She doing decent with that dog?
Very good. Very
That's
good.
awesome.
Very good trainer. Really good obedience trainer. Solid. She makes great chest squares, which is really why we keep her in the club because of her baking skills.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Yeah, shout out to her. Right. But yeah, she so she's got a Raptor pup, and then from a different mother, another person in our club has a male from Raptor as well. And so we I know those lines, and I knew the breedings and so forth, and and we helped Liz get her puppy because she was kind of a newbie to dogs and to sport and that sort of thing. So,
Do you guys do like a weekly club meeting? How do you break it down up there?
We train with all of us together twice a week.
Okay.
My police dog trainers will train pretty much every day. They train with each other a little bit. I train my dogs mostly every day. I give them one day off a week. My goal is to always be doing something with my dogs every day. And I'm a busy guy, so usually.
I was going to say, as much as you travel, I feel like
at the
it'd
end
be hard.
It is hard, and at the end of the day, and you're tired, and you just came off a long travel, and you're like,
This is the last thing I want to do.
I want to go out and run these knuckleheads, and I'm like,
we're very familiar with that.
Yeah, you're always helping other people with their dogs and that sort of thing, and I know my trainers feel the same way sometimes. Is like they're always helping other people with their dogs, and it's like. Sometimes you sacrifice your dog.
Yeah.
But I think it's better if we if we say, look, I've got to be disciplined about this. And so I look at it from my standpoint is, when I hear that voice in my head saying, "No, just go home."
The devil.
Just go home and relax and sit on the couch. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, I've got to get out there and work my dogs. And once I'm, it's like going to the gym. It's like once you're there,
it's the hardest part.
Like,
hardest part's
so glad
showing
I
up.
came. Yeah, you got to show up, right?
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, now's your time. Let's hear everything that you got going on. Any plugs you want to make?
Yeah, one more time really quick for people out there who's interested in the different drives and all the things you were talking about. What was, again, the name of your book, and where can they get that?
My book is Controlled Aggression, and you can go on Lulu Press, LULU.com, and just search Controlled Aggression. And you can get it in ebook form, or it's a self-publishing site, so you can just order one copy and they'll ship it to you. That's the easiest way is to go directly to the publishing site and get it from there.
Awesome. And
also,
if someone is looking for a club,
psak9.org, and just there's a club page there. There's the events page there. I just wanted, if I can, shout out a couple of events that we got coming up. So actually this weekend in Ohio, we've got Southern Ohio Protection Sports PSA trial, and that's going to be on the 14th and 15th. The Tar Heel PSA trial, which is my club, is going to be in Sanford, North Carolina, and that's going to be on the 21st and 22nd of April. That'll be a great trial if you want to come out and just check some stuff out if you're anywhere near the area. We're going to have PSA 3 dogs showing. We're going to have PSA 2 dogs. Every level will be there. We got a pig picking and all that kind of stuff happening on Saturday. So North Carolina barbecue, Eastern style.
When is that?
Be there. That's the 21st and 22nd. So not this coming weekend, but
that sounds fun, man.
Next weekend. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. It's a good trial. We've got South Bay Working Dogs in California doing a training day on May 5th and 6th. All this stuff is on our website for PSA. All the events that are up there, and we got trials coming up in May in Alberta, in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, Texas. We've got events in May in South Africa. We've got events in May in Massachusetts. Got our PSA decoy camp, which is a big one, in May 26th and 27th in Massachusetts and Boston. Mass Working Dogs and Machine Shop Canine are putting that on. So that's those are some of the things coming up in the next couple of months. And then I'll be doing a decoy seminar this will be for police canines in Arlington Heights, Illinois, the 24th through the 26th of this month.
And is that closed off to public?
It's sort of, by if
Invite
you're a
only.
civilian, if you approach me and
Depends who you are.
you're not a whack job, I'll probably let you come in.
So there you guys go.
So
Damn it.
you guys,
Upon successful background.
you guys are out. So
Fair.
and, some of the other trips I got going on, I'll be in Malaysia next month, doing some training with Robin Gan from Real Canine in Malaysia.
Awesome.
So we're looking for doing a decoy camp there, and training some decoys and police work, and also introducing PSA there. At the end of May, I'll be at Moody Air Force Base doing a high-risk deployment seminar there. And then in Canada, Sean Siggins and I will be there in June on the 16th and the 17th, doing a PSA seminar. That's also up on the website. You can check that out. While we're there, we're also going to the Canadian Police Canine Association and doing a presentation for the Canadian Police Canine Association.
And how does Joe contact you if he wants to set up a PSA club in Northern Virginia?
Because I'm definitely not busy enough.
I'll tell you what, I know at least 2 or 3 people up in this area
Yeah.
that want decoys, and they would love to do a club.
Okay.
So
I'll get with you.
We'd be happy to support you in getting that started.
Awesome.
And put you in contact with the right people. But the best thing to do is go to the PSA website and contact Katrina Williams, who is our secretary.
Mm-hmm.
She can walk you through all of the stuff that you have to do to become members and get your club registered and all that sort of stuff. Set up a welcome seminar, and geographically you're in the perfect place to where we could set up a nice welcome seminar. You guys can get the publicity out there, get people to come out, just check it out, and we can you're close enough where if we do it at the right time, we can bring some demo dogs up, see what's going on with it.
I know we definitely have a lot of people that'd be interested for sure.
Yeah.
A ton of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, we want to have people that are dedicated trainers that really want to get into it, and train for titles. And it's a great way for if you are a trainer, it's a great way to credential yourself. If you're a civilian that wants to do working dog stuff, if you can show, hey, not only can I do pet dog training, which is an art and a skill in and of itself, but I can go out there and I can show my dogs in a high level sport and achieve
Get titled dogs.
title your dogs, and and be able to show off what you can do in that sense. That's also, I think, it's a really good way for civilian trainers to show their credentials. It forces you to learn. It forces you to always pick up
Sure.
new things. Gets you networking with a lot of really good people, and most of the good things that have happened in my life as a dog trainer have happened because of the networking I've done through sport.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
And so forth. So I really think that's a huge thing that people can do, and we're always looking to foster more clubs, and this is such a great area.
Yeah, Northern Virginia.
And this is one of those places where if you build it, for sure they will come.
Oh, of course, yeah. It'd be huge here for sure. And if someone wanted to have you for a seminar, come out for like a 3-day seminar or something, how do they what's the best way to contact you?
Best way to contact me is by email, and you can reach me off of our website, tarheelcanine.com. The About Us page has all the trainers' emails on there, and mine is there as well. Mine is J Bradshaw at tarheelcanine, TarheelCanine.com. Email me directly with whatever your ask is, and I'll be happy to answer. And then, if you go on, just for other people looking for other information, on tarheelcanine.com, we have a media area that has all my training articles that I've published in various magazines and so forth. They're on there about, obedience tracking, bite work, all the stuff that we do both in PSA and in police dog training is on there for free. All those articles
Nice.
are able to be accessed through the website. So yeah, I encourage people to check us out and shoot some emails to me if they're interested in any seminars. We can definitely help set it up, and especially if it's like PSA seminars. We divvy those out to a lot of the people that are in PSA, so we can set you up with somebody, if I'm not available, somebody else who's available that can come out and do a great seminar for you and help you move your sport programs forward.
Very cool. And we'll put all those links in the comment section below when it's up. So, what do you have going on, Nick?
Well, I was supposed to leave at the end of this month to do a New Zealand seminar for a family out, and there are 2 dogs out in New Zealand, but they had some stuff come up, so they had to push that back until August. So instead of just doing nothing, I bumped up. I have Brian Callen, the comedian, actor, been in Bad Santa, The Hangover, and literally the list goes on and on. So I have a Brian Callen seminar in Hollywood, April 28th, so pretty much 2 weeks from today. So I'm there for a week, and then what do I have after that? I feel like there's something. There's another one that I'm forgetting about. Oh, and then I have Bruce Allen, the president of the Washington Redskins dog, when I get back from the Brian Callen seminar, and then I go to Fiji. So I'm there for a week. Yeah. And then I get back from Fiji, and we have actually a Bob Salamini decoy seminar. He's coming out and staying with me for a few days and doing a seminar. And that kind of puts me till June, essentially.
Fiji, huh?
Yeah, non-training related.
Fuck
Fiji
you.
is for fuck off related. Yeah, you got the bungalow, on the ocean.
Nobody gives a shit.
There'll be sharks.
Yeah, exactly.
All the time.
But Joe just got back from Vegas. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Nick.
So that's what I have going on. You?
I have a couple aggression shepherds coming in for rehab.
You have a tracking one, right?
Got a tracking seminar I'm doing at the end of this month from a few of our locations around the country coming in to learn it, so that'll be cool. For the show, we have a lot of things coming up.
A lot.
We have, I believe, Dawn Rabinowitz next week.
From Canines on Duty Photography.
Yep, April 20th.
You familiar?
Yeah, she did a few photos for some of my articles.
Awesome.
Very cool.
She does great work.
Yeah, so we have her on here. Hopefully we'll get some tips on how to better our iPhone photography skills.
Actually, she, I have the cover of my next police dog book, which hopefully will come out. I got some time to work on it. Is her?
Awesome.
Yeah, she's really talented.
What's funny is every person we've had on is like when we had the Canine Guardians, Paul, they're like, oh yeah, she's who did the stuff.
Yeah,
the Canine Guard, everyone.
Yeah.
So she's like the go-to photographer for police, military, law enforcement.
Yep. So we'll have her on, get a bunch of her ideas and tips and lots of questions to ask her, I'm sure. And then this is just newly released. We're pretty excited about this. We just booked Drew Lynch, which for those that don't know him, he got second place in season 10 of America's Got Talent. Quick backstory: he had a sports injury where he got a softball to the throat, damaged some nerves, ended up with a stutter, ended up wanting to make that something positive, started doing stand-up comedy. Dude is fucking hilarious. He has a service dog named Stella. I believe it's a Vizsla, and so anyhow, that's going to be our topic for the show on April 27th. We're super
Drew Lynch. If you haven't, go to YouTube, check him out.
Yeah, Dog Vlog is the name of his weekly show that he does on YouTube, so check that out. And he's doing stand-up comedy throughout the country as well.
He actually, didn't he get like the Golden Buzzer?
Yeah, he got the Golden Buzzer. Yeah.
And
So he
Got
got
Talent.
put straight into the finals. Yeah, and then we have a bunch more guests lined up for the
We
summer.
still have David from Scent Logics.
Yep, he's
trying to get him
coming
on
up.
schedule. Just kind of like you, that guy's like all over the world.
Yeah,
so.
I've been talking to Jerry for fucking months to try to get him to come on. It's just hard with schedules and everything, which we completely get and understand.
And with my schedule being gone a lot, and then their schedule being gone a lot, we're just trying to get all the stars to line up perfectly. But we have David from Scent Logics as well coming up.
Yep. So a bunch of good guests coming up. Jerry, I want to thank you personally, sir, for coming in the studio today. Very, very cool of you. I learned a lot. I'm going to be talking to you a lot here in the upcoming days and weeks about
PSA Nova.
About PSA Nova. Jesus. And want to thank Sean for hitting the boards as usual today. Show producer did a wonderful job. At least as far as we know, he did a wonderful job. Thanks to Nick White for being in the fucking studio today.
It's actually the dog show with Nick and Joe today.
Yeah, we actually have some. Nick and I have been talking, with him traveling a lot, doing a lot of celebrity obedience. we've been talking. We have some plans of some pretty cool shit coming up.
Hopefully take the show on the road.
Hopefully take the show on the road. So
Brian Collin would be a good one to start with.
Stay tuned to that for sure. And thank you, of course, to our sponsors and DMABiteSuits.com, FOLCBD.com, Whistle.com, discount code DOGSHOW. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We are ranked number 22 in the country right now on iTunes. So thank you for the support. Please download, please subscribe. And
Share the video.
Share the video, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, the Dog Show.
Hey.
You ready?
What?
The Dog Show with Nick and Joe. It's a beast. It's going down. It's off the chain. It's off the leash. I'm tuning in Friday every week.
Okay.
The Dog Show podcast. Yes, indeed.
Let's see the dance moves, guys.
Giving you advice to help train your K9. Take your dog to the next level.
Hey.
Obedience. The Dog Show, Dog Show. Guaranteed you're needing this.
Hey.
Off the leash. K9 training, Facebook and IG. And the site is so amazing. Yeah. The Dog Show with Nick and Joe. Hold up. The Dog Show with Nick and Joe. Hey.